According to experts, 73.6% of all statistics are made up on the spot. But what I'm about to tell you is no exception. 98.426% of guitarists who decide to buy a microphone buy an SM57 and don't bother buying any other mics. And that's for three reasons. One, they sound pretty good for most applications. B, they're brick shithouses. My grandfather killed 6 men in World War I with this microphone and it's still going. And 3, microphones are confusing. The condenser light, the dynamic range of the
Lisa needs braces.
the carry eye pattern of the show. A ribbon microphone.
That'll play.
It was unparalleled versatility. Could I just get an SM57 please? Oh, also, could I get like 6 pedals that sound like a tube screamer? So in this video, we're going to compare the SM57 with a couple of other types of mics without bashing you over the head with the confusing technical stuff. And even if you do want to stick with the SM57, we'll give you some pointers on how to get the most out of it so that by the end of this video, you'll have a better understanding of how miking a guitar amp affects your tone, as well as the differences between the types of mics that are most commonly used to mic up guitar amps, so you can finally stop chasing that dragon and focus on playing for now.
Everyone knows the classic SM57, so we'll consider that our baseline for these comparisons. While it's a dependable mic that generally sounds good on most amps, there's a problem. This mic has a frequency response graph that looks like this. You can see that it really accentuates the high, fizzy frequencies to a point where what you're hearing from your amp doesn't always match up with what you'll hear through the mic. That's where something like a ribbon mic comes in handy, like this Beyerdynamic M160. Its frequency response is more like this, with a pretty serious dip on frequencies above the 5K range. This is great for guitar amps, since it smooths out a lot of that fizzy high-end sound that competes with lead vocals and makes your guitar sound harsh. That's not to say that a ribbon mic sound is great for all genres or players, but it's a great tool to have in your toolbox for applications where you want a really dark, smooth tone. If you're interested in other dynamic mic options, the Beyerdynamic M88 is another good choice. I'd describe it as an SM57 on steroids. One thing that's worth noting about mic selection is that while most of your favorite guitar players will use something like an SM57 or an E609 when they're playing live, in the studio, it's more likely that they used those mics in combination with ribbon mics, room mics, and even other dynamic mics. But even if you just want to stick to an SM57, there's a wide range of sounds you can get with some basic mic placement knowledge. And before we move on to the mic placement techniques, I do want to mention that this video is not sponsored by Beyerdynamic, but they did send us these mics to try out. And if you want to grab any for yourself, we've put a link to them down in the description.
So when you're setting up your mic, you want to start by using a flashlight to actually see your amp speaker. The closer the mic is to the center of the speaker, the brighter your tone will sound. Closer to the edge, it'll get warmer. Find the sweet spot by playing, listening back, and then making small adjustments until you're happy with the sound. If you're having trouble getting your mic to pick up the sound you're hearing in the room, try an off-axis technique. You'll just adjust the angle of the mic to something more like 45 degrees. This works really well in terms of getting the sound you're hearing from the amp because you're usually dialing in your tone with your ears off-axis to the speaker anyway. Most people don't sit with their ears directly in front of their speaker when they're dialing in a tone, and if they do, it probably sounds like crap anyway because they're deaf as a post. Using an off-axis mic placement will cut down drastically on the harsh sound of the center of the speaker that you don't normally hear in real-life applications. Now let's take a look at combining a traditional dynamic mic with a ribbon mic. This will allow you to get the best of both worlds, blending the tones to taste until you find the right sound for your song. And while it might not be the most practical for gigs with quick changeovers, it's a great way to get the best sound in the studio. Of course, you'll need to experiment within the context of your band's sound, but this shows just how drastically you can change your tone without adjusting your amp's EQ or any of your tone settings. One thing to make note of when using two mics is to double check your phase so none of the frequencies are cancelling each other out. If your mics are the same distance from the speaker, this shouldn't be a problem, but you can check by inverting the polarity of one of the mics. In the studio, it's not uncommon to use multiple amps for the same guitar part and to mic them up with multiple mics, panning them left and right to get like a really massive sound. Combining ribbon mics, dynamic mics and multiple amps is a great way to fill out the frequency spectrum without adding lots of doubles. So now that you got your tone figured out, check out this video if you need some inspiration for what to play next.